I am here with Rhett Graves, who is the founder of HOA Warranty. Rhett, thanks for joining me. You actually found a missing piece in real estate transactions and you did something about it.
Yes, yeah, it's true.
So you discovered a need in the industry that didn't really exist and you addressed it, which is a home warranty. When did you discover that it's something that the industry needed?
Well, my background is real estate, so I was a full-time agent for a while. My dad's been in real estate for decades, and so over the course of that career and progression, it just started to become more and more detailed and drawn out with looking at meeting minutes and concern and trying to run prices. And the problem was, everyone was doing their diligence as they should, but once you got to something, there really wasn't a good resolution or a reasonable compromise. And so that's really what kind of pushed me to say there's got to be a better way. And people in condos and townhouses are dealing with the blind spot that others aren't. It's putting them at a disadvantage. And how do I go about fixing that?
So for someone hearing about it for just the first time, explain what is an HOA warranty and how does it work?
Okay, so an HOA warranty, short for a homeowners association warranty, protects against the repair or replacement of the systems and structures you own as part of an association, up to 10,000. And so that's the technical side of it. And what that means for real estate and transactions is that individual buyers and sellers now have a little bit more individual control as it pertains to belonging to an association to help facilitate their sales, right? Where before they had limited options, and it could be maybe a buyer gets cold feet or wants a big credit or wants to do a 1-year escrow holdback, and the seller would have incentive to not do that, or maybe test the water in the market because those were bigger costs, or maybe they just couldn't do it, they didn't have the equity. And so this is a way for them to say, hey, you know what, I do acknowledge your concerns. I'm going to give you a 1-year, a 2-year, or a 3-year HOA warranty. It'll protect you without, making me feel like I've been disadvantaged or I've given too much, and we kind of take a lot of the guesswork out.
Sounds completely logical. Why do you think it hasn't been created before until now?
So I had the idea, and like everyone else, you get ideas sometimes, you look it up, and 10 people have been doing it for 20 years. So I had this idea that born from sort of this frustration, and I looked it up and nothing, crickets. And so I said, are people not doing this because they haven't thought of it, or you can't do it, right? And so that sort of began my education and looking into it. I think for me, I have like a unique background, a little bit of skill set. So like I said, I was in real estate full time for several years, but prior to that, for almost a decade, I was in collateral and financial operations in and around Chicago. Okay. So I worked on a lot of systems, I worked on a lot of risk mitigation, and making things complex and presenting them in an easy to kind of absorb manner. And so I married the two as I was looking for solutions, and it just kind of came together and clicked.
Right. How many states are you currently in, and are you planning on going nationwide?
So we are in 6 states. We're based in Chicago, so we have Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. We are looking to increase that by about double over the next couple months, and then the long-term goal, or short-term, mid-term goal, is to be just about everywhere in the country. The reason we're doing it in a stepped-out approach is just it's an important thing. It's never been done before, and so we want to make sure we get it right. We don't want to put ourselves in a situation where it causes problems, and then potentially consumers can't use this and agents can't use this. So we are really in that sort of education, integration, letting the market talk to us so that we can deliver the products that they need in the best possible way.
Okay, so good segue. Walk us through what it actually looks like. How does a homeowner use it?
Okay, so there's kind of 2 ways it can be used, right? And it's only available at the point of sale. So you have a seller that's part of an association. Maybe they know there's some talk of work, or they know the reserves are low, or maybe they know nothing about the building. You have a buyer that, same thing, coming in, wants to know the reserves, wants to know if there's any pending work. So you get under contract and you're waiting for some of those details. Maybe you have them before you're under contract. Maybe you're waiting for the management company to give you those. And so when something does come up, right, whether it's the reserves are low, or there's talk about some potential future work, or having contractors out after the close, or the building itself just gives the appearance of deferred maintenance, it can cause friction in the transaction. And the buyers are going to want to make sure that they're covered or more than covered, whereas the sellers might know it's not a big deal, but there's nothing in writing about that. So anytime you have that in any transaction where you've got opposing forces that neither one's necessarily wrong, it's difficult to come to compromise and a resolution. So HOA warranty bridges those differences in a much more cost-effective way, where you now can acknowledge someone's concern without having to spend a ton of money or do all the guesswork and the pricing, and in a way where they feel good about it, you feel good about it. Everyone comes to the closing table with sort of this reasonable compromise that just was really difficult to get to previously.
Are there specific guidelines around how it's used? Like, what are the boundaries and limitations that people should understand?
Okay, so it's there's a couple. We try to make it as simple as possible. It needs to be 5 or more units. It's only available at the point of sale, and there cannot be a confirmed special assessment prior to the close. And what I mean by confirmed is an amount's been assigned to the unit for work or something that we cover as part of HOA warranty. Outside of that, it's pretty straightforward. There are a few additional things in the terms of service, but those are sort of the big three. But based on beyond that, we cover just about anything.
So this is key. So let's go through an example. Let's say that a buyer is wanting to buy into a condo or a townhouse. So there's an association. The association is looking at gathering quotes and estimates, say for a roof project or tuck pointing facade work. And the seller is aware that they're gathering quotes, but no specific special assessment has been levied. So what are the gaps that you're trying to, or I should say, this is the actual gap that you're trying to address?
Correct. Yes.
With the warranty.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. To protect the buyer when they buy into the building, that they won't have additional expenses because they just bought.
Right.
Yeah.
That's always the key, right? Nobody likes a special assessment at any time.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's a buyer or a seller, but you feel it particularly. It hurts more when you haven't even had a chance to use any of these things.
Right.
When you haven't had the ability to have decisions and have a part in those decisions and inside the building.
You don't have a vote.
You haven't had a vote. You don't know how it's been run. You don't know, sort of any of these things, right? So you're just kind of getting hit with that. And so we created the 3-year, the 2-year, the multi-year option for these scenarios. So if you are going into a building where maybe the reserves are lower and they're talking about work, the first thing you typically used to do is start doing math, right? And how many units and how big's the roof and where are the reserves at and what would it break down to, percentage of ownership, what kind of shingles. I mean, there's so many variables. Even on windows, are they architectural windows? Are they regular windows? So you really, the numbers you come up with can vary greatly, and they often do, right, from a buyer and a seller. And so this is a nice scenario where you can come in, you love the building, you love the location, you love the price, everything's great. You're just not sure what's coming down the line. And so an agent can request it, as part of the contract. A buyer can purchase it themselves directly as part of the close. But what's great about a 3-year option is you get that opportunity then to immerse yourself in the building, right? You never want to go into a situation where you're going to have nonstop problems. But with the 3-year option, you can run for the board. You got more say in the vote. You can kind of start righting the ship if for some reason it hasn't been managed in a way that you feel it could to be to its best ability. So we love that option too for somebody that's like, and in real estate, you realize, you're joining a team, and whoever is at the head of that team or the coach really drives the building. And sometimes it's for the better, sometimes it's for the worse, but it doesn't take a lot to, reverse course and get it back on track.
Right. So let's talk about the practicality. So you just tapped into it. You are a buyer wanting to buy into a building. You have an agent. Seller has an agent. How do you see this? What does it look like from the negotiation contract standpoint? Yeah. Because you mentioned that a seller can offer it to a buyer. Mm-hmm. A buyer can buy it on their own.
Correct. And any sort of combination in there between. So some examples or ways it's doing it. If it's already known, like I had an agent, she lived in a building for several years. She moved out, but now she's representing a buyer or a seller in there. And she knows that for these 7 years, they've been talking about work in the meeting minutes and nothing's come of it.
Right.
But it has hurt every transaction during that 7-year period because everybody sees it and they think it's coming around the corner.
They get afraid. They're afraid of it.
They're afraid of it.
Yeah.
So she knows it's coming, and
Right.
she just got in front of it. She talked to her seller. She said, "Listen, we need to just offer this the people will come in with their eyes open, they'll feel better. There won't be, cancellations or hesitations to even come just look at the unit. So she came right out and said, we're offering a 3-year HOA warranty. We'll cover you up to $10,000 for those 3 years. And probably got it under contract quicker than most, right? So within 10 days, they got it under contract. The people said, this is great, we love it. It did make my seller or my buyer feel better about coming in here. Yeah. And it takes away some of those variables in that concern, right? So that's one way. Another is something comes up in the meeting minutes, during attorney review, and they're talking about contractors, the decks, the balconies, the tuck pointing, whatever it may be. And the buyer gets that sort of like hesitation. Now they might say, I don't want to be dealing with this, or maybe we want a credit, maybe we want to do an escrow holdback, which is you take some of the proceeds, you put them into an escrow account for typically a year, and if there is a special, you take it out of there and return the remainder to the seller.
So can I
yes.
add? So I want to slow that down for any viewer that has not bought before in
yes.
a condo.
Mm-hmm.
So right now the practice is you can offer a seller can offer a credit to a buyer,
mm-hmm.
or the seller can escrow funds for a certain time frame mm-hmm. in the event that the association does vote on a special assessment
correct
in the future.
Yes. Or they could say no, right? So there's
right.
these scenarios too where it's competitive, it was multiple bids, they're hesitant to ask for any sort of credit for fear of what may come, and so they can still take it upon themselves to get themselves that protection. So we felt that's something we deployed pretty early into our release, just on feedback where I was getting calls saying, hey, we're already past that stage. I just became aware of this product, and the buyers would like to get this protection. Can we do it?
Yeah,
so
can
we
they?
made that available. Yes, they absolutely can. Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways and combinations that can be used, especially early on as the word is getting out and people the understanding of the product that agents are being very creative with to the benefits of their sellers and their buyers.
And the buyers, yeah. So if you are a buyer and you have one, you bought in the building now, mm-hmm. and now you know that 3 months down the road the estimates are all in and the board votes, and yes, they're going to levy that special assessment for windows.
Yes.
Whatever that is, whatever the project is. How do they actually put it into practical use?
So at the creation of the invoice or the order, whatever you want to call it, to coincide with the close, an agent or attorney is going to have that buyer's information. And that's going to get saved into our system. So it's a very easy process once they've gotten confirmation that there will be a special assessment pertaining to something we cover. They just simply go to HOAwarranty.com. Okay. They enter their email that was on the order and just the invoice number. It's going to take them inside the website, bring them to a portal, and they just upload that official communication. That begins the process. From that point, it's a quick, or tries to be as quick as possible, verification, make sure we're good to go. And from that point, as directed by the association, we cover that special assessment for them.
I think this is brilliant. It's such a need in the industry that I'm surprised it hasn't been done sooner. I mean, I've been in real estate 11 years. I've had transactions that we've had this issue where the seller has escrowed funds for a year plus mm-hmm. just to get the deal done. Right. So let me ask you, what type of research did you do before launching this company?
So that's kind of the funny part, right? People get good ideas all the time, and you look it up and you realize 25 people are doing it and they've been doing it for 25 years. I'd never heard of anything, so I thought there was a good chance this didn't exist.
Me either.
I started to look into it and I realized this product doesn't. So then I say, is it because nobody thought of it, or is it because of something else? And that sort of began my research.
Right.
And what I did was spent a bunch of nights kind of constructing it in a way that I saw it working, right? I married my real estate experience with my financial operation experience. And so I created sort of the system. And then from that point, I went and looked at all these different states on the requirements in the warranty space. And I read through it, night after night, month after month. And then I kind of married that with the product to make sure that it was in adherence with the warranty space. And here we are. And so I did have attorneys look at it and submit and get approval, down in Springfield here in Illinois. Okay. And then from there, we're just getting the word out now.
And so now that you're live, what's been the reaction from real estate agents, attorneys, homeowners?
It's been incredible. It's been enjoyable to speak with different people in the industry. And they've shared scenarios, right? We were talking earlier about an escrow holdback for 12 months, right? And sometimes you do that, you did everything right, or you're trying to protect your buyer, and after 12 months, nothing comes of it, they get their money back. But 14 months, so 2 months after the money's been returned to the sellers, the
Right.
special does get enacted, right? So there's a level of disappointment in your clients and agents and attorneys and lenders and everybody. You never like that. You never want that. Even if you did everything, right, it's still, you can tell there's a little bit of disappointment, and so this kind of enables you to protect your people on either side, so you don't get that call. You don't have to get that call 16 months later. You don't have to have them say, how is this missed? Because the truth is, there might not have been any warning signs, at the time of close, right? Things can change. These are buildings where liability is higher. There's more people in there. If a brick comes off a 12-unit condo, you have to address that immediately, right? Because of the liability of people driving around the building. Where so at your house, if a brick falls off the back of it, there really shouldn't be people milling around, so you can maybe ignore it a little more. And so that's why, it's very helpful. And it's a tool, right? It's a tool, and you don't have to use it, but it's just great when you have options. More options you have, and reasonable options, good things happen for everybody.
Right. Well, thank you, Rhett. It's a smart concept, HOA warranty. I'm surprised no one's done it, but I'm glad that you're doing it.
Yeah.
And one that is actually going to benefit buyers in the future.
Correct.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate you coming today.
Thank you so much, Patrick. I appreciate it.